Everyone, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
sir.
Very much.
Yes, sir.
All
Good
right. So
afternoon.
at this point, I would like to remind everyone to mute your microphones. Once again, kindly mute your microphones. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First, we would like to recognize the CHED Region 10 Director, Dr. Freddy T. Bernal, Seso 3. Good afternoon, sir. The Dean of the College of Education, Capital University, Dr. Ryan Glenn Narvasa. Good afternoon, sir. The Dean of the College of Education, MSU-IIT, Dr. Amelia Buwan. Good afternoon, ma'am. To the President of the Council of Deans for Teachers, Region 10, Dr. Crescente Exor Barcelona. Good afternoon, sir. And of course, to our distinguished resource speaker, who will be properly introduced later. Good afternoon, sir. I want to express my excitement because today we will be talking about diversity in education. I don't know if you will agree with me, but I feel that not a lot of discussions has been made in this area of education in our country, considering that the Philippines is inhabited by more than 182 ethno-linguistic groups, many of which are classified as indigenous peoples under the country's Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act of 1997. We are lucky that the higher education institutions in Region 10 are at the forefront of this development. We are also very fortunate that we have invited an expert to talk about this wonderful area in education. Hence, we welcome everyone in this webinar series on diversity in education, taking the first topic, diversity and teacher education. Once again, I would like to acknowledge all participating HEIs inside and outside the region. Before we begin, allow me to read a little or a few gentle reminders. First, kindly mute your microphones. Second, pin the speaker during his talk. Third, ask questions during the open forum and not while the speaker is talking. Once again, I would like to remind everyone to mute your microphones. Thank you. Number 4, you may write your question and reaction in the chat box. Number 5, you may open your cameras, but if you open your camera, keep body movements minimal. So at this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to request everyone to stand for the singing of our national anthem, for the prayer, and for the singing of our ASEAN hymn.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang mag-ibig, ewas ng sinangalan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyag ka ng magiting, sa mandulupin, di ka pasisigil, sa nagagang tutok sa simoy at sa langit ang bagaw, ay ginagang tulang awit sa pagkayang minamahal. Ang isang ang matawad mo'y tagumpay na nag-iiging, ang bituin at
begin by putting ourselves in the presence of the Almighty God. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, Creator of the heavens and the earth and everything in it, we glorify your name, for you are good and loving. You have given us these magnificent creations we enjoy daily. Lord, we praise and thank you for the blessings you have showered upon us. You are the source of all knowledge and truth, and we seek you, asking for your guidance and protection as you bless us with this opportunity to gather virtually. Despite the challenges each one of us face, help us learn together so we could grow together in wisdom and understanding. Give us the thirst to pursue knowledge and the humility to acknowledge that our wisdom is incomparable to yours. Help us value each other's opinion, lead us to inspiring discussions, help us appreciate one another's work. Open our hearts and our minds to receive new things. Bless our speakers and facilitators with courage and determination to share to us what you have placed in their hearts so that they can impart to us something worthwhile. Bless all the participants with patience and endeavor to persevere. May we become worthy to receive what we will learn today. Let this event be a success, and at the end of the day, may all of us accomplish something meaningful. Thank you, Father God, for the responsibility and the privilege to learn. Kanimo lamang kami moduol kay balumi, nga ang among mga paghangyo imong pagadunggon. Please bless the efforts of our hands. We lift everything to you, O Lord. Salamat sa imong pagkamaayo, Ginoo. This we pray in your holy name. Amen.
Raise our flag, high, stand high, and raise the pride in our heart. Let's sing and we are born as one. Look in our wide world. All days our Lord from there is hope, and for prosperity around. We dare to
To formally open this program, please help me welcome the Director of the Commission in Higher Education, Region 10, Dr. Freddy T. Bernal, Seso 3, for his welcome address. Your virtual applause, please.
Renowned speaker of the seminar series, Professor Dr. Orhan Akredag of the Educational Sciences at KU Leuven and the University of Amsterdam, the Chancellor of Mindanao State University, IIT, Dr. Sukarno Tanggol, the Dean of the College of Education, Dr. Ami Buwan, and school officials and faculty members of MSU, the very active Council of Deans for Teacher Education of Region 10, headed by its President, Dr. Vicente Exor P. Barcelona, and other top officials, members of the Council of Deans of Region 10, and Deans of the College of Education of various teacher education institutions, Dr. Miriam Fuentes, Chief Education Program Specialist, and Ms. Rose May Lumasag, Education Supervisor 2, and in charge of teacher education programs of Schedule 10, teachers and students, Friends, ladies and gentlemen, maayong buntag kanatong tanan. On behalf of CHEDU 10, Council of Deans for Teacher Education 10, and MSU-IIT College of Education, I would like to welcome everyone to this three-part webinar series dated February 16 for part 1, April 8 for part 2, and April 27 for part 3, all this calendar year 2022, on multicultural literacy delivered through online modality via Zoom. It is both strange and beautiful to realize that there are billions of people on planet Earth, yet none are exactly alike. Yes, people are diverse. Diversity, as defined in Wikipedia, is the range of human differences, including but not limited to race, ethnicity, gender, gender identity, sexual orientation, age, social class, physical ability or attributes, religious or ethical value system, national origin, and political beliefs. According to Winston Churchill, diversity is the one true thing that we all have in common. For example, in Region 10 or Northern Mindanao, we are blessed with people coming from various different cultural backgrounds, as can be gleaned from the various languages and dialects we speak, and the number of tribes of indigenous peoples in the region. Of the IPs, we have Sobanen, Bilaan, Tibuli, Mandaya, Mansaka, Tiroray, Higaunon, Manobo, Bagubo, Bukidnon, Tagkaulo, Ubo, Banwaon, Kalagan, Dibabawon, Talaandig, Mamadwa, and Maguangan. The major cultural groups are the Bisaya, Boholano, and Cebuano-speaking people. Within this diverse cultural background are people with different beliefs, orientations, and socioeconomic status, which influence their ways of life, thinking, and learning. It is therefore challenging for teachers to teach in a class of students coming from various cultural orientations, or to teach a group of students with cultures different from the teachers. Yet, if we think about it, literature is replete with findings that when working and learning with people from a variety of backgrounds and cultures present in the classroom, students gain more comprehensive understanding of the subject matter. It also teaches students how to use their own strengths and points of view to contribute in a diverse working environment. It is because of these realities that the Commission on Higher Education included in the policy standards and guidelines of teacher education programs component on multicultural literacy, so that our teachers will develop competence in content and pedagogy, addressing diversity in the classroom. This webinar series on a very important and relevant topic is a sheer proof of CONTE-10 and MSU-IIT's zest and persistence to expand, upgrade, and update the knowledge of our educators and teacher education students on multicultural literacy in the context of continuous education in support of CHED's advocacy on the subject. As such, CHED 10 highly commends the organizers of this webinar series, the Council of Deans for Teacher Education 10 and MSU-IIT. Mabuhay po kayo. Again, welcome one and all to this webinar series. Daghang salamat.
Daghang salamat. Once again, that was the CHED Region 10 Director, Dr. Bernal. To introduce our resource speaker for this lecture, let me call in the Dean of the College of Education, Capital University, Dr. Ryan Glenn Narvasa. Your virtual applause, please.
Good afternoon, fellow educators. Welcome to our webinar series. It is an honor to introduce to you our resource speaker for this webinar. Indeed, this is an international event because we have here an international speaker. Our speaker finished Bachelor of Arts in Sociology and MA in Sociology at KU Leuven, Belgium. He also finished Doctor of Philosophy in Sociology of Education at Ghent University, Belgium. His area of specialization includes Sociology of Education, Teacher Education, Early Childhood Education, Multicultural Education, and some sub-specialization on multilingualism and educational technology. He is currently connected at KU Belgium. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Dr. Orhan Agirdag.
Thank you very much for this kind introduction. I would first try to share my screen, and if somebody give me a little sign whether this is being okay. Do you now see my presentation?
Professor Orhan.
Okay. I can see now that you're able to see my presentation. And am I clearly understandable? My microphone is okay? Okay.
Perfectly fine.
Okay, so I can start. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. It's been an honor to give this presentation, to be associated as a visiting professor. And it is my hope that I can join you in real life in the coming years or in the coming months when the pandemic situation allows us to do that. So I would be really looking forward to meet you and to work in person in the future as well. For now, we have to do with these online seminars, which I hope to share some of the insights of our previous research on diversity and teacher education. And thanks to the collaboration of my dear colleague, Shilani Rurales, I will not only focusing on the research findings that I have from my own country, Belgium, but also present a little bit research results that we have done in the context of the Philippines. If there are any questions, we will have plenty of time after the presentation to discuss them. What I would like to discuss today is briefly introduce what I understand from diversity, then to discuss whether this is an opportunity or a challenge, or how to make a challenge into an opportunity, which I will be focusing on the role of teachers and teacher education, present some of the research findings, and to end with a certain conclusion is what I wanted to today. So what is diversity? What is my understanding of diversity? Well, for me, as my sociology background goes, diversity refers first to cultural differences between groups of people. But groups of people can define their cultural differences in various different dimensions. You can define it, for instance, in social class background. For instance, the differences between the rich and the poor is not only financial, but also a cultural difference between social class, higher social class and lower social class group. Region can be defining of diversity. People from rural areas have some different cultures than people from urban areas. It can be based on ethnicity, where we can have differences between minority and majority people, which could be based on religion, on mother tongue, on racial appearance, on national origin. But also gender could be a source of cultural differences. The masculine culture is quite different than female cultures. and there are many shades between different cultures. So my focus on diversity is first of all on the cultural aspects of different cultures, that how this have an implication on education. All of these aspects have also other elements such as financial things, etc. But that would be not my primary focus. My primary focus is that there is cultural differences between groups of students which have an implication for education. Okay, if we know that there's this diversity in all countries, not only in my own country, but of course also in the very diverse context of the Philippines and throughout the rest of the world, is this posing a challenge or is this an opportunity for education? First of all, I would like to focus on what are the opportunities that comes with diversity, and that it's not only a lip service that we say that diversity is important. By saying that, we truly acknowledge that there is something to be valuable that can come out of diversity. That is our central belief. And also research findings point to that direction, that there are many opportunities, many benefits related to the issue of diversity. To begin with, innovation. That is, diversity seems to trigger innovative ways of thinking, innovative ways of doing, innovative ways of production. That is because cultural diversity comes together with differences in perspectives. And when we have differences in perspectives and allow them to flourish, then we always come to a better solution than with only one perspective. In science, it also works like that multidisciplinary perspectives provide more superior ways of results than single disciplinary perspectives. So when you have a different perspective on a situation, it comes together with innovation, which will be benefits at the long run. What we also know from the literature, and I can show you directly the results of this, is that diverse organizations, they perform better. Not only educational institutions, but also when it comes to things such as workplaces. Research findings show that both ethnic diversity and gender diversity is very much related with better production. For instance, this is a research of the very known McKinsey & Company, the largest consultancy company in the world. They have examined all over the companies all over the world, and they clearly show year over year that companies who are more ethnically diverse perform better, have more income, have more outcome than less diverse companies. And the same also holds true for gender diverse companies. They perform better than the companies that are less gender diverse. So, and combined, it yields a lot of profit to have diversity in your organization. So it's not only a case of the justice, which is good in itself, but also a case of something that we have to flourish because it correlates with good outcomes. Another opportunity that comes together with diversity mostly is multilingualism. And multilingualism can be a very, very rich resource, both for the individual who is multilingual, but also for the society that is multilingual. And let me just give some of the examples of benefits of multilingualism. For instance, there are now very clearly indicated that people who grow up multilingual have very much cognitive benefits. They executive functioning in their cognition works different than monolinguals, and in all tasks that a brain can accomplish, such as executive function or inhibition, fMRI research shows that bilinguals largely outperform monolinguals. And these brain benefits of multilingualism are even measurable at the very late age, that bilinguals, for instance, have less Alzheimer at a later age. They have the disease of Alzheimer than monolinguals because their brains are basically better trained than the one of monolinguals, and we can show this with fMRI studies. But another benefits of multilingualism are cultural benefits. When a person has access to different languages, he or she can read books in different languages, he or she can function in different languages. This comes from the cultural wisdom that a monolingual country or a monolingual person does not have. So it is also a cultural resource to be multilingual. And thirdly, there are also economic benefits associated to multilingualism. That a multilingual persons, they earn better, they have better jobs than monolingual people. But also for the general economy, multilingualism is correlated with the GDP of a country. So these are some of the opportunities, benefits that can come together with diversity, right? But as we all know, diversity can also means that there are other things. By the way, these are the results of the research that we have conducted in the United States, where we have shown that for the immigrants, being bilingual results in more annual income than being monolingual. This was the research finding on that part. But diversity can also come together with challenges, and it is necessary also to acknowledge that part, that it's not always, the results of diversity are not always positive. Think about societal conflicts, think about religious wars, ethnic clashes, class conflicts, that can be somehow related to the present diversity in a location. But more importantly, it can also be related to inequalities and disparities in education. Think about the social class background of children. Think about their language background, their national origin background, and their gender can also be related to their outcomes. And by this, diversity can turn into a challenge for education system or for a country. And let me just show you how these inequalities in education can play a role in both in my country, but also in your country. If you look at the data on the PISA 2018 data, which is international data on the educational success of different countries, you see that for instance in the Philippines, socioeconomically advantaged students outperform disadvantaged students in reading by 88 score points, and 40 score points almost corresponds to 1 year of education. So you can say that the poor students are at a disadvantage of more than 2 years. This is very similar to the Europe and to Belgium as well, where we have even a larger gap between what rich and middle class students perform and what poor students perform on the other hand. So this corresponds with inequality. When you have this socioeconomic diversity, you see that this can also come together with inequalities in education. Also, when we look at the country of origins of people, in the Philippines, native students outperform immigrant students by 64 points, which corresponds to 1.5 years of disadvantage for migrant students. Again, this is a similar level of inequality as we see in different European countries. So you see that the ethnic backgrounds, or in this case, migration background, can also correspond to inequalities. And these are the graduation probabilities of in my country, in Belgium, that When you have a socioeconomically elite background, the chances that you will graduate from higher education, that you get a college degree, is 83%. Almost everyone coming from elite backgrounds get their higher education grade, while it's only 24% of for people who have a more poor background. And this has nothing to do with intellectual differences. We see that very highly intellectual people from lower middle class or from poor background, they still perform not so well in education as rich, higher middle class or elite people. And this has a lot to do with how we deal with different cultures, of course. And there are also countries where there are less inequalities. So this is not a law of nature that children from elite or higher middle class perform better. We can do something about it in education so that there are more equal opportunities in education. And just to show how it plays everywhere, this is, for instance, data from my university. You see that the chances of being successful in your first year is around 50% for native students, while it's only about 28% for students with migrant background. So you see that this inequalities plays everywhere a role. Also in my dear university is this the case. So then what is then our perspective on diversity? Yes, it can come together with a lot of opportunities and have a lot of benefits in the long run. On the other hand, it can also mean that it comes together with challenges, inequalities, and conflicts that we don't want to have. So what is then the ultimate trick to have the benefits of diversity while minimalizing the challenges? Is through education, is through teachers, is through how we set up our education will define whether we will enjoy the benefits of diversity or rather see the negative aspects. And when we say it is decided by education, it is mostly decided by the work of human beings, teachers. Teachers are the most decisive factors that can turn a diversity into an asset and avoid diversity being turned into inequalities or conflicts. So what is then the role of teachers and teacher education in this inequality? Is this really a thing, and what should be then teachers do in order to avoid these challenges and in order to enjoy the differences of diversity? We see that there are less inequalities in schools or in organizations with some characteristics that is more or less bound to the characteristics of teachers. First of all, it seems that having a more diverse faculty of teachers is associated with less inequalities. When there is more representation of students' backgrounds among teachers, that we see that there are less inequalities in education. That is one of the first findings of the consistent findings of the literature. Another aspect is that we see that when teachers have a higher level of cultural sensitivity, that this corresponds to less inequalities among students. So when they have better are equipped with better beliefs and high expectations among for their pupils, it corresponds to less inequalities. So diversity works better with more culturally sensitive teachers. Also, when teachers have less prejudice, their pupils seems to perform better. So prejudices, preferences for own group corresponds with less achievement for different students. Another element of teachers that are successful in bringing diversity as a success story is our high expectations and a growth mindset among teachers. What is a growth mindset? Well, when teachers are believed that their students' intellectual abilities can grow over the years, when it's not fixed, this provides more opportunities for future students than when there's a fixed mindset. A fixed mindset is when we believe that there's a certain amount of intellectual capacity and that you can only perform at your capacity. This is a fixed mindset. And when teachers have a fixed mindset, their students perform low and inequalities are high. Multiculturalist and interculturalist school policies also tends to translate into higher performance and less inequality in among our students. And this also means that avoiding assimilationist and or colorblind school policies might be a good way to deal with inequalities. What do I mean by assimilationist? Well, assimilationist perspective require all students to be the same and look at like the majority, not talking their mother tongue, not wearing religious symbols, etc., are typically assimilationist policies. Colorblind policies, on the other hand, they accept diversity, but they do not tend to put any focus on it. So when you have a colorblind policy, you say, okay, everybody's welcome, but we are not going to focus on it because it's divide us. We are going to look on other things. So we are colorblind. And while it has good intentions, it does not work when people are not recognized in their differences. When their differences are not regarded as a recognition, well, their performance seems to suffer from that assimilationist or colorblind perspective. Here are some results that can underpin what I've just said. This is a research study from the United States of America where they found that for low-income Black boys, having a Black teacher increased their interest in pursuing college by 29%. And decreased their chance of school dropout by 39%, which is actually great. That just having one person that you can relate on means so much in return for the chances of peoples. And also more large-scale studies seems to replicate this finding that graduation rates of underrepresented minorities are positively increased by the diversity of the faculty. So when you have a more diverse faculty in your higher education institutions, among your professors, this results into a better representation among the students as well. But even more important than who you have as your faculty is also their visions, their beliefs, their stereotypes that matter. And the stereotype threat theory in the United States and the research that come from out of it have repeatedly shown that activating stereotype perspectives on minorities decrease their chances in the educational era. That, for instance, we have seen that when Black students in the United States are stereotyped, their performance decreases, while when there are no stereotypes, they perform as good as white students. So stereotyping is a way, so negative perspectives on minorities. When teachers hold these type of beliefs and stereotypical perspectives, the performance of minorities suffer. And this is results from a Dutch study in the Netherlands, where they have measured the implicit racial prejudices of teachers by using implicit association tests. And they have correlated with the math performance of students. They have both measured the impact on the majority group and also the impact on the minority group in this study that were Turkish and Moroccan students. And what you see is that when teachers have more negative implicit racial attitudes, the performances of migrant students decreases, while the performances of majority students ironically increases. So the achievement gaps in education is small or large depending on the level of uh, implicit racial attitudes among teachers. So the teacher perspective shapes the educational performances of students. Another study from a higher education shows that in the United States that the performance between underrepresented racial minorities and between the white and Asian students is related to the mindset of professors. And professors have fixed mindsets when they believe that intelligence of students is all decisive, then there are larger gaps. While when professors believe that their students can grow in their intellectual abilities, you see that the achievement gaps clearly decreases. And this is from another study in the United States that has shown that multicultural policies tends to reduce achievement gaps between underrepresented racial minorities and the majority students, while a colorblind or a control perspective does not decrease the achievement gaps. In the case of multicultural university policies, the differences between groups turns non-significant, while in the colorblind or in the control condition, the differences in the GPA of students remain significant. So the achievement gap also is related to the type of policies that a school or a university has. And in this study with my dear colleague Leersneyer and Gundemir, we have shown that this also holds true for universities in the Netherlands, which with a very international student population. Then we have shown in this study that when the college, when the professors are more colorblind, this results in higher cultural misunderstandings and less inclusion and less psychological safety, whereas a more multiculturalist approach of valuing differences and similarities between groups seems to trigger more feelings of inclusion and more feelings of psychological safety. Okay, then is a question, what about teacher education then? If teachers are so important for making diversity work, so what can teacher education then do about it? Because of course we prepare teachers for future teachers, and we equip them with beliefs, we equip them with skills, we equip them with knowledge. Where are they using this for their teaching purposes? And my research last year focused on how teacher education has an impact on beliefs at the one hand and the knowledge on the other hand of future teachers. And it is that type of research findings that I want to share with you, if I may. So, looking at teacher education that prepares teachers, what is the impact of teacher education on the beliefs of their students, on the belief of future teachers? We have examined this in different countries, but what I would love to briefly share with you is our study that we have conducted in the context of Philippines, that my dear colleague Shilani Rovalas has conducted, which I had the honor to guide, was this research on teachers' beliefs in future teacher beliefs in the context of the Philippines. And this study examined, okay, what types of multicultural teachers' beliefs do we have that we can measure in a certain way. And this study found that we can speak about 2 dimensions and 5 different factors that we have found in the context of Mindanao, Philippines. Which are these factors, dimensions, and factors, you might ask? First, let me say something about the research design. Different teacher education institutions in Mindanao, Philippines were involved, and there were 2 waves of information collected. With the first wave with more than 500 pre-service teachers, and the second wave with more than 400 pre-service teachers. And we have conducted exploratory and confirmatory factor analyses to see what types of beliefs are there available among future teachers. And we have found with a scale that we have developed that has 45 items that we can make a distinction between personal beliefs, and professional beliefs. So there's a personal dimension and a professional dimension that can be divided at the begin with. And within these dimensions, there are different factors. And the first factor that came across as an important factor is ethnocentrism. Ethnocentrism, which of course denotes to beliefs such as, I will just give one example item. For instance, I think that ethnic minorities should learn to adjust to the ways of the majority. So placing the majority at the center of adjustment is a type of ethnocentrism, you could say. We have found different items measuring intercultural personal effort, such as I exert effort to learn about cultures of others. This is an effort that's you made in personal life. And intercultural stress is the feelings of stressfulness when you are personally dealing with people from different cultures. So the personal dimensions and the factors are not education related. But we also found those type of beliefs that are more educational, that exhibiting multiculturalism was, we could make the difference between multiculturalism orientation and monocultural orientations in education. One sample item of exhibiting multiculturalism was, I will make sure that the instructional materials I will use will show cultural diversity. And a more monocultural orientation example item would be, I prefer to teach students whose culture is the same as mine, right? So these type of teacher beliefs we have found that can be distinguished in the context of the Philippines, which are also dimensions and contexts which we have found in European context or in American context as well. But then the second question is, okay, so these are the types of beliefs that teachers could have, their sensitivity, you might say. Can teacher education increase these type of beliefs or improve these beliefs? And is this possible with a course, more specifically an online course that Shalini have developed herself? And the results, I will briefly read the abstract, shows that it's indeed possible. The role of pre-service teacher education is crucial in culturally diverse contexts where conflict exists. In this study, examined whether pre-service teachers' multicultural sensitivity can be increased through a transformative learning theory-based online course. The developed course underwent expert evaluation and pilot testing before its implementation. The t-test comparison of pre-test and post-test with 97 Filipino pre-service teachers shows a statistically significant increase in overall multicultural sensitivity, while the effect sizes are modest based on Collins D. 84% of pre-service teachers claim to have experienced positive change. All pre-service teachers who claim to have experienced positive change identified individual reflection activities to have influenced their change. And this study can be replicated in other contexts. The course design can be adapted, but some of the course content has to be contextualized. The findings of this study can inform both theory and practice on how multicultural sensitivity can be increased through a transformative learning theory-based online course. And here are some of the results of this interesting finding, that we found significant improvements for ethnocentrism. We found significant improvements for intercultural efforts. We found significant improvement for exhibiting multiculturalism, and we found an overall effect as well. Interestingly, in terms of stress and in terms of the monocultural orientation, the course was not directly having a significant effect, which I think is great, because you see that we can improve in some aspects in the course. I've also examined teacher beliefs and future teacher beliefs in Belgium. And Belgium, being a multilingual country, has a lot of focus on the language issues. There is a large belief that multilingualism might not be beneficial for students. And we examined this with future teachers. How are these teachers' beliefs about student languages, about the mother tongues, about multilingualism? And also we examined what teacher education characteristics matter. So how should we design teacher education in order to improve the beliefs of future teachers about their beliefs about multilingualism? And we collected data across 6 programs in 5 institutions with 19 pre-service teachers with bachelor's and master backgrounds. So this was our sample for this study. And looking at the beliefs, you see that there is quite a tendency of a monolingualism beliefs that prevail, while multilingualism is less supported. For instance, we found that many future teachers found that students should not speak their home language in the classroom, while only a very minority of teachers, minority of teachers found that students should also have the opportunity to learn their mother tongue at school. And what teacher education characteristics had an impact? We found that intercultural context, having a course on cultural diversity, having a standalone course on multilingualism help, but only when there is enough infusion throughout other courses. So prerequisite was that not only one course there was available about multilingualism, but that cultural diversity had also a place in regular other courses. So you see here the impact of having a multilingualism course is dependent on the level of infusion, where the curriculum is infused with cultural diversity. It helps. And this is one of the last research findings that I would like to share with you, is about how teacher education can have an impact on the knowledge of future teachers. And excuse me, it's getting a little tense. We use the Schulman's model of pedagogical content knowledge as a starting point for this research. So we say that knowledge of future students exists about not only content knowledge, but also pedagogical knowledge and the intersection between both. So for instance, a teacher in math should not only be able to do math himself or herself, but also knows how to deal with in a classroom, and also knows how to bring math to their students. But we add diversity knowledge into this model. So we say that diversity knowledge has pedagogical knowledge elements, but also content knowledge elements. And we have developed knowledge tests to measure them, actually, how diversity knowledge, whether about content or whether about pedagogical, is established through teacher educations. And we use the same sample, and we have found that our teachers in Belgium have really low levels of general diversity knowledge. They're on a scale from 0 to 100, we speak about 38, so which is quite low in terms of when we measure the knowledge of our future teachers on general diversity. And similarly, their pedagogical knowledge on how to deal with differences in the classroom is quite low. And this is also a finding that alarms us. But also, when it's about the contents knowledge, and we only measured this for the contents of history lessons, we found that it's a little bit better, but still on a scale of hundreds, it was about 52. So there's still a lot of room for improvement of the knowledge levels on diversity for teachers. Interestingly, we also saw differences across different programs. So what explains that some programs do better than other programs in terms of pedagogical or general diversity knowledge? And we have found for both for the general diversity knowledge and for the diversity pedagogical knowledge as well, that the infusion, the curriculum throughout with diversity is also a key element here to embed cultural diversity throughout the whole course. Seems to improve the knowledge of students as best, but their knowledge is also related to their gender, ethnicity, and parental education, but that's not the main focus of our research. So I'm almost at the conclusion, which I hope then we have still plenty of time to have discussions as well. But my conclusion is I think is quite clear. There is a reality of diversity in many countries, which is sometimes also an increasing level of diversity in many countries, such as in my country. That this can be a large opportunity for us to have benefits from, that we can learn from, and that will be a cultural richness and economic richness. However, it can also be a challenge due to conflict, due to misunderstandings, and that education, thus teachers, play a crucial mediating role into whether diversity will be a challenge or an opportunity. And as we are from teacher educations responsible for the preparation of future teachers, I think we can do a lot to prepare future teachers as good as well, by not only providing enough courses on cultural diversity, but also embedding cultural diversity throughout the whole curriculum, and having also a diverse faculty could improve future teachers' way of dealing with the how future teachers deal with diversity. So that was my first presentation. I hope that there will be a lot of questions and debates.
Thank you very much, Dr. Orhan, or Professor Orhan, for your wonderful presentation, especially in the context of diversity in education. And we appreciate that we saw like a study or research on diversity that is taken into consideration the pre-service teachers here in Mindanao. So at this juncture, we would like to call in the Dean of the College of Education, Dr. Amelia T. Buwan, to facilitate the open forum.
Hello. Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Orhan, for that presentation. So we learned that the first presentation talks about how the study about, or maybe it's a fact that if you have diverse people work in a company and they perform better than other company which maybe have less diverse. And then also in teachers, no, for teachers who have good diversity knowledge, what would be, and also have a content knowledge, then they could integrate or more or respect more on the different culture of the students. And Dr. Orhan gave us a challenge as a teacher education. It's because based on the study, Dr. Orhan presented the role of pre-service teacher education as a cultural role in a culturally diverse like Mindanao, where conflict maybe exists. No? So I guess we have here different teacher education leaders, and as well as pre-service teachers who are also here, who also need to think about how to learn about this diversity knowledge. And also the leaders are also here thinking about how to integrate or infuse the diversity concept. So here we are. So please ask your question for Dr. Orhan. We'll start. So you may type it in our chat box or your questions. Dr. Chris, you may want to join us on this discussion. What do you think? In what way, as a teacher education who lead a teacher education curriculum, in what way do you think that we could start on discussing about diversity and infusing or integrating it in our curriculum? Oh, there's a question from Francis here. Sorry, Francis, I missed this one in your chat. There's a question about Dr. Orhan. What is your comment about age discrimination? So there's a thing as age discrimination.
Yes, of course, age discrimination is one of the elements that is an important part of, and maybe underlied part of discrimination, especially in the workplace, right? So especially the research that I know from European context, I don't know whether this is the case in your context as well, shows that similar degrees, people with at a certain age have less chance to get hired. So this is a reality that we know from research. I have conducted myself less focus on it, less research on it, but I know that this is one of the elements of diversity that could be a challenge, but also could be turned into a opportunity, because yeah, at the late age also means more experience. More experience means also better productivity most of the time. For instance, in the teacher factors, we know that teachers who have more experience than 5 years actually perform better than novice teachers. So we could also turn this challenge again into a benefit, but we need some clear diversity policies to make this possible. That would be my remark on age discrimination.
Thank you, Dr. Orhan. So as presented by Dr. Orhan, so we found this age discrimination could be one of the challenge, and as well as opportunities in some cases, right? So yeah, this is also very interesting. And maybe in the classroom, we could also experience that also about age discrimination. Maybe there are students, or maybe a parent would, or a student would enroll in elementary and her age is 12 years old at grade 2. So in what way could as teacher handle in that case, right? So, yeah.
I see an interesting question in the chats about a conflict situation in a class, what you can do to resolve it. I would say it would be not my expertise to say how practically when it's so far when there's a conflict to come to a situation of peace. But from research that I've done, I know that how we can prevent it mostly. And the prevention of this is not by ignoring the cultural differences in the classroom, but first of all by making it explicit. And as teacher, you can start by making your own background clear, right? I am teacher. My gender identity is this, and my cultural identity is this, and make clear that this every cultural background has a valuable place in the classroom, and this will avoid to a certain degree that that implicit conflicts that are resides among students will show up, because most of the time this conflicts has to do with feelings of less power, less feelings of exclusions that at a certain point came to understanding and misunderstanding and into a conflict. So preventing this types of conflict is probably much more my suggestion than when it's so far to solve the situation is rather difficult, I believe. And I have simply no expertise on that part. But I know when the curriculum, when the approach towards cultural diversity recognize the differences and but also the similarities, and makes it possible that we have a curriculum that respects all the differences as much as we can. Of course, there is this line of there are culturally harmful practices that you cannot allow in a school context, of course. So it's not sometimes there are harmful cultural aspects. I will understand to exclude them in a good dialogue with students, why some certain elements, cultural elements, are excluded from schools. But all other aspects of cultures that are not harmful should be embraced and celebrated and valorized in order to avoid the conflict. Just being colorblind or silent about differences will not solve problems, but will result in problems. That's I think the most important suggestion that I can give on that part.
Thank you, Dr. Orhan. Yeah, I agree. So I hope we could think about, or we will have that diversity knowledge in such a way that we could include that in our planning so that we could avoid conflict. But if it happens, then we also have our way on how to resolve that conflict. But of course, we try our best that we will avoid conflict. But, yeah. Another question from.
Maybe you can use the chat, but if you can find it simpler to just use your microphone and video, that will be also welcome.
I agree. You may join the conversation here. So here, a comment here. Personally experience a case. I have a student who is a senior among his classmates in terms of age, but I'm glad that my class is embracing age culture, diversity, so it was never been a problem. Yeah. Okay.
Good afternoon, Nandi.
Yes.
Can I also ask one question to Professor?
Sure.
Would you think that a short course for diversity, pedagogical knowledge would be beneficial for faculty members, especially those who are not in the teacher education preparation programs, like in engineering, STEM, in business.
Yes, and I have no direct research evidence to prove that. So it's more my personal experience. But I do also teach the faculty in certain universities of applied science that so teach educations across the country. And particularly for teacher educators from more science technology, I see that bringing these issues on cultural differences, pluralism, discrimination, and prejudice, that providing this knowledge helps a lot in their practice, and to avoid deficit thinking, to value more multilingualism. But this is more my personal experience as a lecturer in this case to colleagues. Maybe I should do also research on that part. We didn't do it yet, but I think, because of course I think I understand the roots of your question. You say, if you want to give this to future teachers, we also need, yeah, teacher educators to be able to do this. Yeah, that's probably the root of your question. Yes, of course. I think that the first professionalization part there would be a great starting point. And I think that the online module developed by my dear colleague Shelani would be a very good starting point in the context of Philippines to do that and to improve it and to make it even better. So yes, I certainly believe that educating the educators would be a starting point to make differences possible, and that this should be integrated in the professionalization efforts that has been a part of all universities.
Thank you, Dr. Han. So if you choose to be an academician, then learn about diversity in education. Okay, so yeah, Vita, you may want to join us here, show your video in this discussion. You have a very interesting question, Vita Caparoso. You may want to open your microphone and video. Or Dr. Han have read the question in the chat and you may want to answer that.
Okay, I can just read the question from the chat. So the question is, how in Belgium do we at policy level probably address these gaps in performance between rich and poor students or natives and immigrants? There is a certain national policy on school funding that allocates more funding to schools that serve more disadvantaged and more immigrant students. So schools with higher percentage of poor students, with higher percentage of immigrant students, they receive more funding, both in terms of teaching and in terms of workplace, than schools with more privileged students. That is a policy that I support, but also has its limitations, because it also depends on what a school does with this extra funding. Most of the schools just invested in smaller classrooms, so teachers have less pupils in their class. That, I would say, is not the best way to invest this money. But let's say schools would invest that money to more improve the cultural sensitivity of their teachers and to more adapt their curriculum for this diverse population, yeah, then it works greatly. So the state policy is, because we also very much believe in the autonomy of schools and how they should perform their policies, is just providing more money, more means to school with more disadvantaged students. But then, of course, it lies on the hand of the school and the school principal and the teachers what that extra funding results. And we see that some schools do a great job, by doing work on how can we better improve the students' results, but other schools just do very few things with that extra funding, and then it doesn't work. With only money, you are not going to solve a problem. Money is a mean to solve a problem, but you also need policy at school level, and that is lacking in grades many schools. So I hope that this is answers to your question, Vita.
Thank you for that, Dr. Orhan. So the policy support of the government is also very important. Yeah. So another question here from Jacob. Do you agree, sir, that it depends on the upbringing and parental guidance of the parents? No,
That's a difficult question because of course all parents want their children to be successful. I have never met nowhere in the world a parent who says, I don't care about education, I don't want my child to be successful. That does not happen a lot of time. Most parents want their kids to be successful. However, not all parents have the means or the capabilities to make their child successful. And then they will keep at distance. I think it's our task as educators to reach out all parents and not the other way around. It is way too easy to put the responsibilities of education in the hands of parents, while we know that many parents do not have the opportunity or whatever to be able to bring this guidance. So I would say it is our responsibility to reach communities of parents, if you cannot reach individual parents, to make them more actively involved in schooling. And once we realize that, once we establish good connection with communities of parents, it will work great. But once we have this antagonistic beliefs on parents, like they're not interested in their education or they want other things, that's not going to work. That simply brings us But so I would rather suggest to reach out to parents than the other way around.
Yeah, thank you for that, Dr. Arhan. Actually, that is what is happening right now in the Philippines because of COVID, the challenge of COVID-19, and as well as the opportunity of reaching out with parents. Yeah, I guess with that experience, we found it challenging, but right now, I guess every teacher now is thinking about on accepting the challenge, on giving also parents the opportunity to help us, and as well as the teachers is also thinking about how do we capacitate also our parents at the same time accepting the different type of culture of parents. So now I guess it's making so complicated if we consider also parents, because we have the different type of learners in our classroom, and as well as different type of parents that who could support their students. But it's okay if we have maybe it's not really okay, but if we still have that passion and commitment to education, to attaining good education to our learners, and then we have to work together, and then accepting that the diversity of our learners, and as well as the community where we are. Thank you for that, Dr. Arhan. Another question here. Yeah, we have here, that is why PTA is in every school with basic education curriculum. Actually, Dr. Arhan, just to give you the picture, we have a big banner in every school that says that our school is a child-friendly school, considering on how they, yeah, they recognize the diversity of the learners. Other questions here? Oh, I guess this is the last question, Dr. Han. Okay. This is only a comment. The topic is very much appreciated. Many are informed, aware of the importance of diversity in all areas of life, diversity in teaching and learning environment. However, the knowledge is not well practiced or used. And this is a good opportunity right now, a community. That's why this is sponsored by COTE Region 10. And I hope in one of our session with administrators, in what way that we could start talking about or acknowledging diversity, and how do we develop our pre-service teachers on this, the future teachers, and as well as addressing how do we train our in-service teachers on this aspect.
Yeah. Amy, I also see another important question also on this related, that is what teaching strategies you can suggest that is effective in a multicultural classroom. There are, of course, many strategies that you can read about, but for me, it's most important is to bring culture in connection with the subject matter, when it's relevant. It is easily done for principle about history, to have histories of all cultures taught in the courses, but it's even possible to when you're learning maths, to bring culture into the equation. I just saw two examples when I was observing classrooms. And there was a school where in Belgium with many minority Muslim students, and for instance, teachers were able to relate to this children math teacher by saying, guys, you know, in this classroom we are using Arabic numbers. And of course, the numbers that have been used are Arabic, and they were being related to their background because of this example of using Arabic numbers. These are just the numbers that we use, but have their history, of course, back to their culture. Or the same teachers was when she was explaining what a cube was. She referred to the style of where Kaaba, the religious place of Muslims, looked like. So she connected the math knowledge on the cultural knowledge to be able to establish the attention of students. And I think that this is the way for all the subject matters to realize, when you have certain knowledge about the cultural background of your students, you can connect with them by building on the knowledge that they already have. So what learning, this is the most important strategy for a teacher, I believe, is to, once he or she is somehow learning about the culture, is to bring it up when it's relevant on the course matter. Otherwise, it's only a folklore. So what I also see some schools doing is trying to represent culture by disconnected from the learning material. By, for instance, bringing different types of foods or clothes to a ceremony. Yeah, I'm not against ceremonial celebrating of diversity. That can be a good thing, but it's much more important to connect diversity to the course contents. And I will give one of the presentation that I will give will focus on this element. And the errors that we can make is also related to the course content. So when we say that there is one way to looking at the world, this is simply not true. How the world is represented in a map or anything is always culturally bound. So we should make this, we should not ignore this by having a diversity blind or culture blind or color blind perspective, but embracing, look, there are different possible ways to look at a certain topic. Also to look at the history of conflicts. That's and not impose only one perspective on all students, because that will turn into longer-term problems of feeling of underrepresented in the curriculum. Another issue, for instance, in Belgium, Belgium has a history of very rude colonialism, for instance, in African countries. When I was a young learner in the classroom, we learned very few things about this. We learned very few things about what Belgians did in Congo, for instance, which was which were terrible things that we have done in Belgium, in African parts. So that's to include that history, which you are not proud of, is a way of dealing also with other students, because there are many Congolese students in Belgium as well. And when they are not represented well in the curriculum, they will not feel belonging to the curriculum, they will not feel belonging to the school, and this will have return diversity into a challenge rather than an opportunity. So again, if you ask me what is the most effective strategy, is look at the curriculum, look at the learning materials, look at how it teaches, and see how we can connect in a positive way, not in an imposing way, with the diversities that represent themselves in the classroom. That would be my more practical way of approaching this issue.
Thank you, Dr. Arhan. Their answer also posed challenge to everyone. Looking at the curriculum, and as well as try to look at the culture, the history, and everything. And then, yeah, I guess practicing diversity knowledge will have different level. Maybe, maybe we have what we call here in the Philippines United Nation Day, and then everyone is wearing different type of culture. Maybe that's level 1. But thinking about every subject area, would think about on how to integrate that. So maybe Dr. Arhan, the integrating diversity knowledge will also promote creative teachers, how to defend their understanding on it and how to include that in the curriculum. Thank you. Very interesting question are coming up here.
Should I read the questions in the chat?
Yeah, we have series here about research shows that a child who has a strong first language can easily learn a second language. This is the reason the mother tongue is now being taught in early elementary years. But the problem now in the Philippines is because of media. Many kids are more exposed to English because of social media and find it very difficult to learn mother tongue. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, that's of course, learning the mother tongue is an important question for the upbringing and the early childhood education, right? We will also have a seminar on multilingualism where I will be focusing much more in detail on these issues. It is important also to acknowledge that a school can build upon knowledge as far as the school can grasp these types of languages, right? So when there is no basics, when children does not have their good basics of a mother tongue, it becomes hard for a school to build further on that type of knowledge. That's certain. What we can do is to work with parents and to show them the importance of talking a lot with children and reading aloud and doing their best and do this in language which they can do best. And if that's another heritage language, then they should use those languages and to bring children. So this is also a question of reaching out to parents with young children even before the age of education, to make it possible to establish this and also when they are using media to be able to make the supply of multilingual media possible. For instance, I have a 2 years old son, and if I would just give him the iPad, he would be probably exposed only to English resources, right? So we choose deliberately in which type of media we expose him to learn the languages that we want him to be exposed. But we have also the luxury that this content exists. Where I try to raise my child in Dutch and in Turkish as well. These languages are available for me in terms of cartoons, in terms of books, in terms of other. So if these resources are available, then it's up to campaign to make this possible, and that there is no disconnection between the language that parents use themselves to direct their children and the language that they are receiving from the media, that also importantly decides their linguistic capabilities. And while it is possible to also have multilingual upbringing, so you can learn 2 or 3 or even 4 languages at the same time, it becomes a challenge to keep when certain language is not used in the media, is not used in the school, not used and parents do not communicate a lot with children, then this language will be lost, and education cannot do anything about it. It's very hard to bring back a language. So availability of different languages is an important question here.
Thank you, Dr. Han. And I guess it's very important to capacitate also our parents on this matter. There's a good question here. Maybe I'm not so sure for the timekeeper, if we could still entertain this question. But this is a good question that will challenge all of us here in Region 10. This is our initial talk on diversity. And let's continue talking about this as a community. How can administration of a teacher education institution address the issue that not all the educators are well trained and lack the experience in terms of techno-pedagogy in handling the diversity needs of learners manifested by monotonous delivery of lessons?
I think that we come back to what we discussed earlier, that you need a professionalization, whether it's about dealing with cultural diversity or whether it's about dealing with technological differences. Without this professionalization and support, most importantly, it's going to be difficult. I saw this at the beginning of the pandemic. This was also clear for us and I had the luck to experience the difference between 2 universities. And in Amsterdam University in the Netherlands, we were greatly supported by assistants who would make our digital environments clear for us, who would moderate the questions, who would the only thing that we had to do as professors was to log in, and everything was fine. While in Leuven, we had to do everything ourselves. So the lessons that we gave in the beginning, they suffered a lot. So the support from the universities on this part is also very much, and as well as the professionalization regards on this. Yeah,
thank you. So yeah, I guess we just need to talk more about this one, and maybe if we this is our start on thinking about the diversity in education, and then the things that we have learned here. For all the participants, try to take note what is your key learning and how do we start doing it in our action if we are teachers, and thinking about on our learners and the diverse learners that we have, and looking at the curriculum, in what way that we could integrate it in planning So that the question a while ago about resolving conflict, maybe not our curriculum or maybe our planning is, if possible, there is no conflict, but let's try to do that in our plan. And if conflict really arises because of the diversity, then we are ready on how to solve that. Yeah. Yeah, I guess this is very interesting now, Dr. Han. There are a lot of questions here. Yeah, some are comments, but I guess this is a good start for everyone. And maybe we'll talk more and then we'll be mature, or maybe after the third session or second or third, we will try to hear more comments and experience on how do we implement this concept. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for again inviting me, and see you soon.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Han. I'll give back the microphone to the facilitator.
Thank you very much, Dr. Buan, for moderating the Q&A. We also would like to extend our thanks to our participants for actively cooperating and asking questions and, enriching the discussion of this lecture. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this program. At this point, may I call in the President of the Council of Deans for Teachers, Region 10, Dr. Crescente Exor Barcelona, for the closing remarks. Sir?
Thank you very much, Roel. I was caught earlier by what Dr. Ami was saying. This is a start, and we hope that our key learnings will come to a fruition through planning, through action at the later part. But I'd like to see right now, just very quick, 10 seconds or 20 seconds, if I could see at least a word that would best describe your learning experience in today's session. So I'd like to request our participants who are in our Zoom room today to write in our chat box at least a word that would best describe your learning experience today before I will finally give my message. So it says here, enlightening, very enlightening, insightful. We have enlightening, insightful, and a couple of thank yous though. There's unity in diversity, helpful, superb, very informative, comprehensive, impactful, productive, informative. Last 10 seconds. Diversity in pros and cons, informative, empowered, encouraging, very well said, very interesting, and a lot more. Wow. We have a lot of things here that says more about how they really have affected the kind of talk that you have today, Dr. Erhard. That's why we are very much grateful for your presence today. And I'd like to quote you earlier when you said that diversity is an opportunity for us to learn from, where teachers can affect change through teacher training. Indeed, really, there is a need for all of us teachers and also our incoming teachers to really rethink on our current pedagogical practices by looking into our content, our outcomes. And as teachers, we need also to be aware, to be aware really on diversity in education by looking into our curriculum, our course content, our pedagogy, our learning materials, which hopefully would result to a positive change that is acknowledging a range of differences in our classroom, leading to embracing these differences. And we do hope that the next sessions that we will be having with Dr. Erhard will give us more information that would lead us to a deeper understanding of how diversity in education can really be not just a concept, not just a thought, but really a way of life among teachers. With that, I'd like to acknowledge Dr. Erhan, the people who really made these things possible. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge Dr. Ami Buan and the College of Education of MSU-IIT, from the technical down to the program and everything. Thank you so much for really facilitating. And of course, I'd like also to thank the members of the Council of Deans for Teacher Education who are here with us, and also the deans from the different colleges and universities who are here. I'd like to especially mention our officers, Dr. Carmen, Dr. Ryan, Dr. Gladys, and Dr. Laila. And of course, we would like to acknowledge also the effort and the support of our Commission on Higher Education Region 10 Director Bernal, Dr. Fuentes, and of course, she was here earlier, Ma'am Rose Lumasag, our education in charge, teacher education in charge of the region. We'd like also to thank our pre-service teachers who are here, because if the teachers right now are challenged, the faculty right now are challenged, the more that you are challenged on how we can incorporate, how we can weave in diversity in education in the coming years, in the next few years that you will be teaching. With that, I'd like to invite everyone on our next session, which will be on April 8th and April 27th. I hope that you will be able to join us by then, because I'm pretty sure our guest speaker will give us a lot of insights, a lot of talk about these things. And an advance announcement, hopefully, if approved, we will be making a lot of possibilities by helping all the licensed professionals who are here. Should I make already the announcement, Dr. Ami, or not yet?
Not yet.
Not yet, but hopefully we will be able to help you in terms of your professional uh, credits, CPD credits. But we are still working on it together with our good friends, our partners, our partner university, Capital University, headed by Dr. Ryan Narvasa. With that, thank you very much. Daghan kaayong salamat for all your presence. We have more than 500 who are here. And of course, there are also other people who are joining us via YouTube. So thank you again, and God bless you all.
Was the president of CODTE Region 10, Dr. Barcelona. Thank you very much, sir. Another reminders, please complete the evaluation form that is given. The link is given in our chat box. Also, the evaluation form link is pinned in our YouTube Live. We also remind our participants to carefully write. Once again, kindly, carefully write your name and email address in the evaluation form so that you will not encounter any problem receiving your certificates. Once again, please write your names and email addresses carefully. This point, we also would like to announce that this is the first of the 3 webinars that we have organized. 2 webinars will be coming up. The second one will be on April 8th, and the third will be on April 27th. So we hope to see you there. And please watch for more information and announcement regarding this webinar series. At this point, I'd like to request everyone to open your camera for our photo opportunity. All right, I guess we're ready. So I'll just count 1, 2, 3. So after 3, smile. Ready? 1, 2, 3, smile. And more. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay. And then another. Just continue smiling. Wear your best smiles. 1, 2, 3, smile. Yes. I think we have 2 more. I don't have information, but by the number, no, it speaks that we have a lot of panels or frames. So just keep on smiling. 1, 2, 3, smile. And then 1, 2, 3, smile. All right, last. 1, 2, 3, smile. Thank you very much for your big smiles and beautiful smiles. So we would like to say thank you so much to our pre-service teachers and in-service teachers who are with us in this virtual room and of course in our YouTube Live. Thank you so much. See you next webinar series. Goodbye everyone and keep safe.